we can get into it. All right, we should be back in the building. Back at it on this Wednesday. Hump Day is in the building. Looking all crispy and clean on the screen, might I add. Welcome, y'all. Welcome back to another YouTube live stream and another episode of the ClassE. We'll just call it the ClassE show because it's the afternoon. Y'all know what I'm saying? I am your host, ClassE, at patreon.com/ClassEbeats. By the way, the link is in the description as well as in the pinned comment in the chat. Got a great show for y'all as usual. We're going to get into something new, a couple of different topics today. The people have spoken and y'all are about sick of Brian Walshe. He said, lock this man up. So we probably won't be covering Brian Walshe much today. We're going to hear about Fani Willis. Fani Willis is actually agreeing to show up. Her lawyer, former governor, said that she's going to be there. We'll have to see what happens. We're going to hear from Candace Owens to start the show. And then we've got an interesting story from Law and Crime about a YouTuber that tried to run down a cop. It gets crazy. But first, as always, I got to say what's up to the people and thank y'all for being here, man. Thank you to everybody who makes this show the amazing place that it is. Speaking of amazing, we've got my awesome, amazing Amy in here. Shout out to Amy doing what she does, and that's be amazing. Shout out to the beautiful Amy E. Taco Tuesday is in here. Les Cleaver, good to see you. Slim Life, New Jersey. Jay Buckmaster is back at it as well. Good afternoon to y'all, and thank you all for being here and showing up so consistently. Although sometimes I know we don't always start at the same time. I'm gonna do better and we're gonna work at it. Now, I don't ask for much on this show from y'all, and I don't usually, well, I always start the show asking for something, but it's simple, it's easy to do, and it's free. And all I ask is that you guys like the video on your way in. Likes are free, helps the channel continue to grow, and let the algorithm know that y'all are enjoying the show. Shares the video, the channel, this specific live stream with more people. So thank you to all the near 1,400 of y'all that have liked the video already. Absolutely insane. We got 1,400 likes. That's one of the most liked live streams we've had before it started. So I know y'all are anxious to hear about Fani Willis. Thank y'all for liking the video. If you're feeling extra generous, you can also share the video as well. Very easy to do. You click the share button. You can share it to your group chat. You can share it to someone on text message. You can even share it to X, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you're on social media. And then last but certainly not least, I will be reading super chats as we go throughout the show. So thank you to everyone who goes the extra mile and sends in those super chats as well. All right, we're going to go ahead and get into it because I know we are into the afternoon and y'all want to get started with the show. Again, thank you to everybody that's in here. Good to see you, Elijah Watts. Welcome to the show. And thank you to Amy for always reminding y'all to like the video. Let's go ahead and get started. This is going to be an interesting day. Oh man, and for some reason my headline is not working. So we're going to fix this. We're going to update what's going on with Candace Owens and get into this whole situation. We've been talking a lot lately about what's been going on between Candace Owens and Turning Point USA. Seems like Candace Owens is taking a little bit of a step back from that now and actually getting back into her investigation into what potentially happened to Charlie Kirk. She's got some new updates, some new evidence, is hearing from some new people who may have some insight into what went on during the time of this investigation. Again, to everyone who's telling Candace to just slow down, to stop talking about it, y'all could just watch something else. I think there are a lot of questions that need to be answered, not just from Candace Owens, but from those of us that saw this horrific thing go down live and in 4K. So we're going to get into it, and Detective Candace is going to tell us what she found. Check it out.
I am just going to tell you guys exactly how everything came about, everything that I'm about to deliver to you. Yesterday was a holy day of obligation in the Catholic Church. It was the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. A day of obligation means that a day in which you are required to attend Mass outside of, obviously, typically Sundays. And so as soon as we concluded this podcast, I grabbed my jacket and I ran out the door, okay? And as I was sitting through Mass, deciding, I guess, what was on my mind to pray about, for whatever reason, I got on my knees and I was not expecting this to come out, but I just focused my prayer on wanting something to be delivered to me, a piece of evidence that would help us put together the full picture of this assassination. Obviously, we all know that what we are being told is not true. We all know that nothing that we have been presented with makes any practical sense. But there are sort of smoking guns in this that are missing, right? It's one thing to point out all the lies, but we need to also have solid concrete proof of something that took place that was out of the ordinary in the days leading up, maybe, I don't know, a planning session. Well, I got back home after this very intentional prayer and did my routine, had a very late dinner, went up and said goodnight to the kids, got myself ready for bed, sat in bed, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to open the tips box. And I kid you not when I say that it was the very first email that I saw, the very first email that I opened up. And it really didn't have any details. It was a young woman, and she said, "You really should call my friend. It is absolutely urgent, and he has information that you need to hear." And don't tell me why. I don't know what came over me, but maybe it was this intentional prayer. I said, I'm just going to call him right now. 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes after this email hit my inbox, I was calling this person and I had no idea what it was going to lead to, whether it was going to be a totally insane person or whether or not it was going to be a very swiftly answered prayer.
Wow.
The person that I spoke with, his name is or was Harry, and he told me a story which I have since fact-checked various elements, the elements that I could fact-check, and it's legit. This is a legit story that I'm about to share with you, and I want to say before I relay it that the descriptions of the people are based off of his own memory, but the facts pertaining to where he was, whether he was where he says he was, for the reasons that he says that he was there, he is being honest, okay? I can tell you that he is being 100% honest, and you are free to look further into this. I am certain he is going to probably be doing a lot of interviews in the near future. I can also factually state that there was an incident report, so this was recorded, and what transpired on September 8th that caught him by surprise was something that he thought was a part of a broader military conspiracy against him. He could not fully comprehend why what was happening, okay? So let's start actually 35 years ago, because you need to know who this man is. In 1990, this young man named Harry Myers discovered something that would shape the next 3 decades of his life, okay? He was at the bottom of the military chain. He was just 20 years old, and he was put on what was actually a brand new command, the first ever Joint Task Force 6. And this new command was being created down at the border by President George H.W. Bush, and it was presented to the American public as, look, a war on drugs with the help of Colin Powell. And it should be noted that this took place, just to kind of get you back into what was going on at the beginning of the 1990s, this took place just after the Iran-Contra affair, right? The Iran-Contra affair was from, I think, 1981 to 1986, happened under Reagan. And for those of you who are not read into massive CIA scandals, this was the scandal when the American public got to learn that our CIA was actually trafficking drugs and weapons throughout South America. A scandal which, if you guys have followed our Epstein series, we now know that he was also involved in the Iran-Contra scandal. It essentially shook the foundation of Reagan's White House. And during that time, during Reagan's tenure, George H.W. Bush was the vice president, okay?
So she's giving a breakdown of the person who she got this information from. So she's telling the story of what they were involved in and how they came to get this information about Charlie Kirk's assassination.
The scandal. So when George H.W. Bush then decided that he was going to run as a president of the United States, and he did run and he ran in 1988, just a couple of years following that affair, he had to really hit hard on drugs at the border, and declare that this White House was going to do all that it could to stop these drugs from flooding into America. Take a listen to him saying what they were going to be cracking down on.
This is crack cocaine.
Oh, they had
Seized
cocaine
a few
in the
days
White House
ago by drug enforcement agents
Dang.
in a park just across the street from the White House. It could easily have been heroin or PCP. It's as innocent looking as candy, but it's turning our cities into battle zones, and it's murdering our children. Let there be no mistake. This stuff is poison.
So you hear the directive from the then president, H.W. Now, our protagonist in the story is Harry, right? He's 20 years old, and he's at the bottom of the military totem pole, and he gets attached to this new command, this new Southern Command. Previously, there had never been that joint task force, and Specifically, he was a part of an operation that came to be known as Operation Catacomb. He describes himself, and I'm going to put this in quotations, as a lowly military censor guy assigned to this Joint Task Operation 6, and they were to cover half of Arizona and Mexico. And I'm going to read this next portion of his story directly from him, okay? And I quote, "In just 6 days, I planted sensors, translated data, and skipped the chain of command and gave proof of the existence and pinpointed the location of the first ever discovered Sinaloa cartel underground rail tunnel. By passing directly through to lower Border Patrol agents, I skipped command and directly, a Border Patrol agent was able to skip his command and directly sought a warrant to raid the tunnel, which avoided tipping off any compromised commanders that were working with the cartel. Thus, why it resulted in such a big bust. Most importantly, it did not give time to remove photos that were on the walls on the Mexican side. Where our Joint Task Commander, who was a high-ranking Border Patrol, was actually in the photos in that house, posing with El Chapo and Felipe, his architect. And there were other U.S. Marine officers and Mexican law enforcement officers and military that were in those photos, okay, end quote. So just to be clear, he discovers this tunnel, somehow skips the chain of command. Now they find this massive tunnel and, oh, wait, why are military commanders and high up people in the military in pictures with El Chapo? What's going on here? I'm going to pause here to let you see an old news clip regarding.
And if you watch the documentary about this, you see that the military used a lot of those tunnels as well. If you haven't checked out that documentary, you should be able to find it over on Netflix, I want to say. Really, really, really well done. Gives you some crazy insight into what goes on when dealing with the cartel and a lot of these drug runners.
Regarding this explosive discovery that Harry made.
The tunnel was called one of the most sophisticated drug smuggling schemes authorities have ever seen.
Insane.
Using jackhammers and torches, federal agents broke into the concrete reinforced tunnel at a warehouse in Douglas, Arizona. 30 feet underground, agents walked for 100 yards through the 5-foot-high tunnel. It took them under the Mexican border to a house in Agua Prieta. There, they found an air compressor, a sump pump, a small trolley car, and a hydraulic jack. It was used to lift up a floor inside the living room of the house where the smugglers would start their illegal trip to the U.S. Authorities said when the tunnel wasn't being used for drug running, the smugglers would flood it with water.
Let's say we came over here with some technology trying to detect this. It would look like an underground stream if it was flooded.
Federal agents said the tunnel cost at least $1 million to build and had probably been in operation for 6 months to a year. Last November, customs agents received a tip that a sophisticated tunnel was being used to funnel cocaine into the United States.
Okay, so now we know what was happening there. Let's skip ahead and find out who this guy actually is.
United States military men in that house. What happens next is predictable given what we now know. Harry's superiors take the credit for the bust, and he's going to continue what happens. I'm going to, again, quote him verbatim. Quote, "On the surface, I was given a small reward, an Army medal. I have the write-ups for those awards mentioning me and my critical role in this mission success. That said, U.S. Border Patrol members who recognized me as being the agent responsible for the bust did not like seeing that I wasn't being appreciated more and resented my higher-ups for taking the credit for the discovery. Somehow, in the immediate days after the bust, prior to the United States side getting the photos from the Mexican authorities, my information was given to the cartels. In continuing the mission, me and one Border Patrol agent were sent to Naco, Arizona, where I was approached by a cartel member confirming my identification by rattling off my mother's name, address, my high school, my friends, everything listed in my clearance packet, which was supposed to be locked in the custody of the Joint Task Force 6 commander, whose picture was with El Chapo and about to be discovered. We avoided being taken hostage or shot, sneaking away and driving out of that little town. I was taken back to Fort Huachuca with the U.S. Border Patrol agent I was with, believing, since I was just a young 20-year-old, that I must have somehow compromised my own ID. The next day, I had a debrief with the Army Criminal Investigation Division and a prosecutor from Tucson, Arizona, informing me of how my ID became compromised. I was told that I was then going to be put in witness protection. My orders restricted me from any further work in counter narcotics, from being stationed on or south of the border, and it prevented me from working with Border Patrol. It was a Band-Aid while they prepared and got approval for me to be put into witness protection.
Wow.
Also, to protect me, the mission and the prosecutions, I was also put under an NDA gag order, which was dated out, okay, look, this is 1990, to May of 2025 to prevent me from mentioning this entire ordeal.
Dang.
The witness protection entrance never happened. The ball got dropped. I never got contacted for it. From what we uncovered, a deal was made with the compromised U.S. Border Patrol agent commander. Okay, so let's pause and just recap there very quickly. And I'm going to tell you what this has to do with Charlie Kirk, okay?
Here we go.
So I guess in a sentence, a young military man did his job excellently. He accidentally stumbled upon, or actually, accidentally stumbled upon the fact that our government was implicated, not in fighting the cartels, but working with the cartels. And suddenly he realizes after some time that the government then feeds him, or somebody spitefully, perhaps his commander, fed him to the cartels. And now he's on the run for his life.
Jeez.
What happens over the course of the next 35 years is he's hacked. He says that he goes through abusive litigation. He is harassed. He says there are narco attorneys that attack his credit. He has police records, by the way, for all of this. He has presented evidence for this. But throughout a certain point in time, these police records were virtually disappeared. He had been reporting that hitmen were coming after him. He had names. This was a 35 years long ordeal. He now has all of his paperwork thanks to some county clerks who did the right thing and were able to dig up these records. But you name it, this man has lived it throughout the last 35 years, okay? Fast forward to May of 2025, May of this year, and Harry Myers, who now has a new name, by the way, which I'm not saying, but he is finally released from this 35-year military-grade NDA. So what does this now 56-year-old decide to do? He decides that he's going to confront his past. He wants answers, okay? He wants to know why he was never protected. He wants to know if the FBI had been informed, and if so, which they were supposed to be, why they didn't do their job. Why didn't they protect Harry? He was working for the military and he did his job. He makes up his mind that he's going to deal with this in person. He is going to travel from his home in Washington back down to the very base where this all began, right? To Fort Huachuca, in Arizona. He's going to revisit the past. He's going to get these answers. He books himself to stay in a hotel on the base, a military hotel known as Candlewood Suites.
Oh, in Arizona, isn't that where Turning Point was trying to get Candace to go?
And this is on the evening of September 8th. I want you to remember that, okay? He has been so thorough. He has sent me timestamps, bookings, reservations, went through his call logs. I was like, I want you to pinpoint when everything happened. So he gets to the Candlewood Suites at approximately, on September 8th, 5:37 p.m., checks into the hotel. And you can imagine he's a person that pays a lot of attention to his surroundings, right? When the cartels are after you and your family and you are compelled to change your name, you pay attention to your surroundings to see if anybody looks shady. What he notices is somebody who is special forces in the lobby. He said, you just know when you're dealing with a special forces guy. And he is in the lobby, and a young woman, comes down thereafter. That young woman, who at the time he did not recognize, is with him. They kind of fluff around in the lobby while he's checking in. He's on the phone with his wife. And thereafter, the two of them get into a green pickup truck, and they drive off. Okay. The next morning, now we're September 9th, he wakes up at around 5:30 a.m. in the morning because he wants to see the sunrise. He says that he then fails at finding the Army Criminal Investigations Department. So he drives off base, just a little ways off base, to get some coffee in Sierra Vista. While getting that coffee, he runs into some soldiers. Again, this is just all God at this point, who happen to be wearing 10th Mountain Division patches. And he's like, that's my old unit. What's going on here? Like that, he thinks his unit's gone. Nothing's going on with this unit for a long time. That it's been torn apart, or I don't know what the military expression is for that. He strikes up a conversation with these young guys, and they tell him, "Oh no, the old Joint Task Force 6 is now being continued, and it's known as JTF, Joint Task Force Southern Border." Wow. Now, for those of you who are like me who don't know, like literally what it sounds like, Joint Task Force, meaning like you can get the Army, Navy, everybody kind of working together on something. And they're like, yeah, it's now JTF Southern Border. And they give him directions of how he can actually get to the new command center. They tell them that they're actually currently borrowing a building down there. And he tells me that there would have been no other way he would have discovered where it was. So his intention was to go to Army CID. Now he's like, wow, I can go directly to the actual JTF 6, which is now being continued, and get some answers. What luck. It is now around 7:37 a.m. when he enters the new or temporary JTF headquarters, and he sees two guys, and he's pretty impressed. He's like, whoa, these are, again, military term, E4, E5s. He told me that means that they're lieutenant colonels, and they are the ones that are checking him in. He happens to walk in at the exact time that they are concluding a meeting, and he is kind of even more impressed because he sees about 12 lieutenant colonels. He tells me, you do not see that many people, that many E4s, E5s, E6s. Please, military guys, forgive me for me not knowing what the proper vernacular. But he just goes, well, what's going on? He's like, you don't see this unless you're at the Pentagon or you're at the White House. You just don't see this many high up the food chain lieutenant colonels.
Interesting.
He's going, man, this is a pretty important meeting. And then he sees three men walk out, one of which is the person he identifies as the person that's the center of the action, right? He said you could just tell this is the most important person. And he has gray hair. He's got glasses. I believe he said that he's about 5'10". And at this point, he sees that the person that is with him, and he said, certain that the person that is with him is Brian Harpel. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
I remember this guy.
Oh, it's about to get even more interesting.
So this is that guy is one of the guys who was a part of Charlie Kirk's security detail. And he went and did this whole lengthy interview about what happened, what went down, how they handled everything, some of the rumors that were being said about them not administering aid to Charlie Kirk when this all went down. He spoke out about it. And now Candace is tying it back into Charlie Kirk. Here we go.
So, and again, I'm going to say allegedly because I wasn't there, but I have spoken to this guy and I very much trust what he is saying. I think he is very credible, okay? So he sees Brian Harpel come out, this older guy, and what then happens is first the guys that are checking him in are friendly. He explains to them, yeah, this is what happened to me. I just want to speak to somebody. They're like, yeah, let me help you. Then all of a sudden after Brian, who he believes to be Brian Harpel, who he's not obviously recognized at that time, he would not have known that was Brian Harpel, but he remembers him, obviously, because then the biggest political assassination since JFK happens. Suddenly, somebody hits the panic button, and two captains come out, and they escort him out of the building, and they begin what becomes a 7-hour interrogation. Okay.
Oh man.
They think he's a spy. How did you rumble this meeting? How did you know this meeting was taking place? He's being asked a bunch of questions. They're putting pressure on him. They're gaslighting him. I actually want to, if you give me a second, I want to read exactly what he messaged me about what took place, because it's just, it's incredible. It's actually just incredible with how he describes what their strategy here of attempting to gaslight him into believing that he was a spy or that he was working for somebody. And he's like, no, I'm just here over an incident that happened 35 years ago. I'm trying to get answers regarding it, and they're putting pressure on him. I'm going to write this verbatim. He says he's being interrogated. He is, quote, being accused of being a bomb threat because I was special forces in the military, EOD in the military. They then attempted to try to gaslight me to see if they could angle an accusation of me being a threat to others or myself. When all of that fell flat, they then conferenced with base commander after I assumed they verified that I was not there to spy on that particular meeting. They decided it was okay to send me off post. That's when I drove a Tucson. I got a room. The next morning, I turned in my rental car. I got on a plane back home, and I had to stop in Salt Lake. Upon landing and turning on the phone, my wife is telling me about Charlie Kirk. And again, this was just a coincidence. I happened to be in the airport at the time that you are talking about all of those strange flights that were taking place there. I did not notice anything helpful other than the fact that the airport was not very crowded. So after 7 hours, he explains to me that they were going to, they debated holding him for 48 hours for this perceived, perhaps maybe bomb threat spy thing that's happening. And he's thinking, can you imagine this? They're paranoid, but he's paranoid and thinking, oh my gosh, this is more like Sinaloa cartel stuff. And I'm being treated like this because I've wanted to speak out about this story for 35 years. Both of them are wrong. Okay. Both of them are wrong. This really is just a coincidence. And adding to this coincidence is the fact and that he got the commander's name. That obviously, that questioned him for this long. He says this was the guy that was in charge, the commander. And he said he was approximately 36 years old. He had brown hair, the one I'm talking about that was leading the charge on asking him all the questions and interrogating him, and that his name was Captain Neff. I'm going,
Oh, not Blake.
Now, I have the same question that you have because I've looked and it does seem that, and I never even questioned this, whether or not it's potential that Blake Neff has military connections as well. Like, I guess that kind of like, I just thought this is a producer of Charlie Kirk show, but it is interesting that somebody, and this would be.
Oh my God. This is wild. The connections that Candace is finding out. If this is the case, this is going to be insane. But again, this seems like an interesting timing because Candace Owens has this and has had this entire back and forth with Blake Neff over the past several days, especially when it comes to this meeting that's supposed to take place next week. So it'll be interesting to see if he responds to this in some way.
Like, I just thought this is a producer of Charlie Kirk show, but it is interesting that somebody, and this would be brother, cousin, I don't know, this is the person that interrogated him. And eventually, he says, was a person that had a heart and realized that he was not a part of any spy network and eventually escorted him off of the base and onto his way. That's a lot of coincidence for me. Now, he says to me, communicated this to me very clearly. So, Candace, I know how these meetings work. These are the meetings that are had ahead of an operation. Like when an operation is being confirmed, you have these final meetings and they involve all the higher ups, and you are trying to do this in a very isolated location where, you know, people are not going to accidentally happen upon you because they've got something to say about what happened 35 years ago. And that is what he happened upon. And I don't know what to make of this information other than he feels that he then recognized these people. He feels certain that he recognized these people in the days following Charlie Kirk's assassination, when a bunch of people are doing Fox News. And obviously then we've got a massive event at a stadium and everybody is in front of the camera eulogizing him. He feels confident that he recognizes these people and that needs to be shared. He's willing to tell a story. Like I said, I have verified. He has sent me so many documents, everything from his high school graduation certificate to his military documents to the police records to everything that he's speaking about that happened back then, NDAs, judges, things that he's been in court with fighting just to get out his story of what happened 35 years ago when he did the right thing, when he stumbled upon. And boy, does he have some luck. Boy, does he have some luck that he goes from one government conspiracy to what he now believes he stumbled upon, which would be another government conspiracy. Okay. He said that this commander, Neff, by the way, was the commander of force protection. Best he could tell, he did not get the first name. He did get an incident number, which I should have had prepared for you, but I can find it here in our chat because he sent me that too. He said there would have been no record for this if they didn't swarm me as if there was a bomb threat, because now, of course, there is an actual incident report, and he believes that this can be FOIA requested. And that report number, if you will bear with me, I'm going to read that to you all because I think this is going to take really the whole world to investigate. It is 8611-2025-MPC 446. So that is the report number that was given to him by this Captain Commander Neff. And like I said, he has given me I could have just put up documents upon documents, certifying that he was there, certifying that this happened, whether or not his descriptions and whether or not the people that he thinks he actually saw at this base, I don't know. What I will say is that something that I could easily have done was to see whether or not, I asked him, did you see Dan Flood? No, well, that checks out because Dan Flood was with Charlie in Korea. And I am wondering about that. Like, why would you want to go to Japan a day before you have a college campus event, right? You have Charlie on the 6th, on the 5th, and on the 6th of September. He is in Korea doing an event. And then on the 7th, he's in Japan, and he is on CNN News Japan speaking. And so, yeah, like on the 8th, if that's when he left, maybe he left on the 9th, you got a 12-hour flight back home. And I have questions, and somebody out there knows something, and I don't know what to say other than this feels right.
Yeah, we all have more questions, man. What do y'all think about this? Now we're talking about somebody who was in the government saying there was a meeting shortly before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. What that meeting was about, how this person was involved. Well, I don't know if we'll know. Still waiting to see more receipts and more information from Candace Owens. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Y'all let me know what you think about this in the comments and in the chat. You know, I think as much Bigfoot's going to be next on her list. I think as much as we've been covering this, it's honestly exhausting. And respect to Candace Owens for continuing to go with this and to stick with it, because at some point you just want answers. You want to know and understand what's going on. Like the constant questioning, the constant searching. It's like, oh man, when are we actually going to have an answer to something? Maybe that'll happen with Turning Point's meeting coming up on the 15th, or their live stream they're going to do on the 15th. I highly doubt it, man. I think Turning Point is going to come out and do their basically what they've been doing this whole time, saying, yeah, this is what happened. No, that wasn't true. Actually, here's what was going on. And it's still not going to add up. So let me know what y'all think. Rough, man. Amy in here dropping a super chat. Shout out to Amy with the cake. Oh my goodness. Bring that cake over here, Amy. Reminding me to make sure I have some lunch. Shout out to Amy with all that cake over there. Man, I say it was the dog, man. Shout out to the dog, man. Yeah, it's starting to get kind of crazy out here. She needs to let it go. I'm sorry Charlie's dead, but move on. Oh man, are we doing, y'all are tired of it too? I think a lot of people are starting to get tired of searching, tired of wondering. And maybe we just wait until Tyler Robinson's trial and things will make sense then. Hopefully we get to see it. Who knows? Who knows? Thank you, Amy, for the super chat. I appreciate you. Someone's talking about the president in here. Shout out to 4547. All right, let's go ahead and get into our next topic, because this one's going to be interesting as well. He said, no, we're getting tired of her. Well, I mean, what else can we do? Because Candace is literally the only one who's saying what a lot of people who saw what happened to Charlie Kirk and who saw the investigation that was done by the FBI and the Utah government, Utah police force. We saw it and we said, this doesn't make sense. Candace is just saying what a lot of us are thinking. And it's tough because she doesn't have the answers either. No one's giving the answers. So she's the only one monetizing it. Well, that's not true. I talked about that yesterday. I talked about it yesterday. Candace Owens is not monetizing it. Candace Owens has been doing this. Whether it was Charlie Kirk, whether it was Epstein, whether it was whatever. This is what she does. She investigates, asks questions, searches for the truth. And a lot of people don't like it because it's Charlie Kirk, but just go back and look at her history. This is what she's been doing. So yeah, to say she's purely monetizing off of Charlie Kirk's death, I think, oh man, if anybody's monetizing off of the attention that Charlie Kirk is getting, it's Turning Point USA. I mean, they're live streaming on Charlie Kirk's YouTube channel, for goodness sake. And this isn't some random person who's randomly talking about Charlie Kirk and randomly just searching for it. This is someone who's Charlie Kirk's friend, who worked with Charlie Kirk, who helped Charlie Kirk get to the place that he's at. We're not talking about some random YouTuber here. What are you going to do? And she has the platform to continue to push the issue. I think she should. The Honorable Attorney Kel Bell says, I'm absolutely not tired of it or her. At least someone is trying to find the truth. She's trying. I mean, you got to give her her props for trying. I mean, people just want her to sit on her hands and wait on the government and the FBI, who have clearly not been completely upfront. And obviously, as Kash Patel said, it's an ongoing investigation, so there's only so much they can do. But I mean, goodness. Don't say he was shot by a 30-06 and the doctor said he's got a neck made of steel and it was a miracle the bullet didn't go straight through his neck. Come on, man. Oh, Mickey Steins. Yeah. Mickey Steins going to be interesting. I was actually talking about this offline the other day, and that Mickey Steins situation is getting interesting. We're going to talk about it tomorrow. There's some news coming out about Mickey Steins and what's going to happen with that case moving forward. So y'all make sure you stay tuned in for that too. Amy says she's tired. She's tired, boss. Tired of this whole situation. We've got an interesting one for you. So we're going to deviate a little bit from the main topics we've been talking about. Well, let me read this comment by Amy. She said, I mean, by all means, keep on asking questions and searching for the answers, but you can do that on and off the live stream. Yeah, I think that's what she's doing. I can't imagine. I mean, it takes me a lot of effort and a lot of time to put together this show that y'all see here. And I think we do a pretty good job. But all that Candace Owens is putting into looking for and vetting and finding facts and talking to people and getting people to talk about what happened behind the scenes. I mean, I can't imagine the energy that would take. But yeah, she's doing it. Let's get to this next topic. So this was an interesting one I found from Law and Crime, and shout out to Jesse Weber and the team over at Law and Crime. I will leave a link to the full video here about a YouTuber who got locked up for trying to run down a cop. This is one of the weirdest stories I've heard of. We're going to play the video and I want to get y'all's thoughts on this. Check it out.
And we're back with a major update to a story that we have been following here on Sidebar. And it involves YouTube lifestyle and luxury real estate star Eric Conover, who has nearly 3 million subscribers. And by the way, you may watch his videos. You may know him from his glamorous tours of multi-million-dollar mansions and vlogs. But his story took a turn. Yeah, it took a very dark and violent turn, to be more specific. This happened back in March when prosecutors claim he led New Hampshire police on a wild, dangerous, multi-mile chase after being spotted speeding. And it's alleged that during that chase, he intentionally plowed into a Bartlett police officer who was thrown 40 feet and then led police on another pursuit. Now, at first Conover was charged with attempted murder, among other felonies. In court, he made explosive claims, vowing to eviscerate anyone who questioned his mental competency. And actually, with that in mind, the case became a battle over his mental state. His defense claiming that he suffered from this severe bipolar manic episode at the time this all happened. The prosecution, the state, alleged that he was plotting to use that as a legal strategy and was kind of making it up. And that high-stakes legal battle has now reached a sudden and dramatic conclusion. Why? Because Eric Conover appeared in court, and this time, his tone was completely different than what we heard before.
I know it's a difficult situation for everyone present that day, and I deeply regret my actions.
That is a stunning shift. The YouTuber, who once vowed to fight these charges, claiming police lied on paperwork, that this was a sting against him, he now stood before a judge and changed the course of his case forever. To understand why what happened in court is so significant, and what, by the way, we can expect his life to look like now, I mean, how many years in prison is he going to get? We have to really understand the full story of this case, because honestly, at times, it's stranger than fiction. You have Eric Conover, 36 years old, big presence on YouTube, star, nearly 3 million subscribers. His whole channel is about luxury. He tours these insane multi-million-dollar mansions. He makes lifestyle videos about living in expensive cities. His whole brand is about glamour and aspiration. And it was that brand that was shattered on March 15th of this year in rural New Hampshire when, according to police, Conover was spotted speeding in his Jeep going 55 and a 35. When officers tried to pull him over, he took off, leading them first on an 8-mile chase. Now, authorities say he eventually stopped, and that is when Bartlett police officer Cameron Emmett approached the vehicle on foot. And prosecutors claim that Conover then intentionally drove into Officer Emmett, rolled up on the hood. Police reports say the officer was thrown 40 feet, suffered significant injuries. Thankfully, he's alive. But instead of stopping, Conover took off again, leading police on a second 28-mile chase. At one point, witnesses said he was pumping his fist in the air through the sunroof. Now, police were finally...
Sounds like a little bit of the snow was involved here. I wonder if it was snowing out there.
To stop him. They used spike strips to end the pursuit. So first, the charges were very severe. Attempted murder, first-degree assault, and reckless conduct. Now, I mentioned that prosecutors initially said that this was intentional, what he did with the officer. As reported by WMUR, it appeared that the attempted murder charge was actually thrown out months ago. As Carroll County Attorney Keith Blair explained, there wasn't enough evidence to prove that he had the intent to kill the officer that he ran over. So they moved forward with the other charges. But from the very beginning, Conover's own words in the courtroom, that is what became the big part of this story. He was defiant. He made claims about police conspiracies. He talked about his celebrity status. And then he issued this statement to the court during his arraignment.
If anyone dares try to test my mental competence, I will eviscerate every single person with my intelligence right now. And that's not being egotistical.
He claimed he was the target of a police sting, denied the claim, stating that he'd been sober for over 1,500 days, insisted police had falsified the paperwork. The judge ordered him held without bail, by the way. And what followed was a months-long fight over his mental competency. In other words, does a criminal defendant know what's going on? Can they participate in their defense? Do they understand the legal process as it's happening? And as reported by WMUR, there was first a competency hearing held in March. Then Conover was ordered to be sent to a mental health institution for 30 days. And in April, he was deemed competent. But then you had the second mental health issue, and this is different than competency. Insanity. So it was reported that his defense was preparing an insanity defense. The problem was, it seemed the prosecutors were skeptical from the start about any sort of mental health crisis that he may have suffered, because they introduced recorded conversations that he had with his father in jail, where he allegedly said, quote, "Mental health crisis is our go-to. We plead mental illness and get me to Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center to a nice facility." Now,
these people should know by now. I mean, maybe they just don't watch true crime like we do. But why would you have these type of conversations in jail? Why? And listen to everything. Come on, man.
By the way, that was all introduced during the competency issue. But again, general issue nonetheless about is his mental health struggles, these alleged mental health struggles, are they real? Can he assert an insanity defense? This is probably going to come up. But now we go back to what just happened. The trial's on the horizon, okay? And Eric Conover walks into a Carroll County courtroom and made a choice that changed everything. He took a plea deal and pleaded guilty to 2 felony charges, first-degree assault and reckless conduct. And in exchange for that, he was sentenced to a range of 4 to 10 years in state prison. Conover addressed the court, and this time, the man who once promised to eviscerate people had a very different tone.
I know it's a difficult situation for everyone present that day, and I deeply regret my actions.
And by the way, that officer that he hit, Cameron Emmett, provided a victim impact statement to the court saying that what happened to him permanently changed him. Okay, so to help us understand the legal strategy here, the surprising conclusion, by the way, what we can expect for his prison term to actually be, we are joined right now by seasoned trial attorney, friend of the show, Rich Schoenstein. Rich, thank you so much for coming on. It's good to see you. Okay, why did he plead guilty?
I don't know about seasoned, though, but otherwise,
isn't that a good thing? It's a good thing. It doesn't. I don't think it's an age thing. I think it means you're so experienced and so well read, and you're like our wealth of knowledge. I think it's a good thing.
That's how I'm going to interpret it.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to do it. So anyway, why did he plead guilty? Talk to us.
Well, I think he pled guilty because the case against him was so strong. He didn't have a chance prevailing at trial. And as we know, you know better than anyone, Jesse, when you take these cases to trial and you lose, you get punishment that's much worse than if you plead guilty, right? Because the system wants people to plead guilty, wants people to avoid going to trial. And so there is some benefit to doing that if you feel like you have no chance.
Yeah, and I'll get into what the potential prison sentence could be now, but there is a shift here. There is a shift in the strategy. I mean, for months, the defense seemed to have been building up this mental health issue, right? It was a case first around competency, and then it was potentially an insanity defense, 2 different things. But the state was alleging at the beginning that this was a calculated move, and that all changed with a guilty plea. And I'm curious, let's start here. If you were pushing forward with this, it was a manic episode, he wasn't in control, there was an insanity issue here, and I'll talk about what New Hampshire law says about insanity. Does that mean if he pleads guilty now that all of that wasn't true? Or does that just mean, hey, he's pleading guilty, we just didn't think that was going to be a successful defense or didn't want to try that defense? It doesn't take away what we really believe happened. If you're the defense, how do you reconcile it?
Well, I think it means you didn't think you could prevail on that argument at trial. If you had a defendant and you thought you had a really solid insanity defense or some related defense, you probably wouldn't be inclined to settle and have your client be incarcerated. So it tells me they didn't think they were going to prevail on that issue. Does he seem troubled and disturbed from the facts? Absolutely. But we face this all the time. To me, somebody who would do what he did seems at a minimum imbalanced. When does that become insane to the extent that it would be a defense in a criminal case, right? There's a line somewhere. But what I get from this is that his lawyers didn't think they were going to prevail one way or another.
By the way,
Yeah, I mean, the question is, why was he doing this in the first place? What was going on? What in the world was going through this man's mind that he thought this would be a good idea? Let me know what y'all think about this in the comments in the chat. We're probably going to follow this and give you an update once this eventually goes to court, unless he just pleads guilty in some way, which I highly doubt is going to happen. Let me know what y'all think. This is crazy, man. And shout out to y'all for showing so much love. Mr. Brown is in here showing so much love, talking about how long he's been on the channel, the work he sees we're putting in here. Thank you, Mr. Brown. I appreciate it. It means a lot, and I appreciate that you're showing up and dropping the super chat as well. Thank you, man. Thank you. Continuing to pray for you and your continued recovery as well. Keep the good health going, man. Thank you for the super chat. Thanks for helping keep the lights on over here. Mr. Brown said, ClassE, you and your team have done a great job, and I'm glad to know and have been with you from the beginning. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Glad you're here. I know you had some scary times earlier this year too, and thank God he brought you through it. We prayed you through it, and you're still hanging out with us. So glad to see it. Glad to see you taking care of yourself, taking some nice vacations too. So shout out to Mr. Brown. I appreciate you, man. Let's get Fani Willis in here, because I know y'all are really ready to hear about this. And I never miss out an opportunity to talk about Fani Willis on this channel. I know Fani Willis is watching, but it's all right, because Fani's got to give some answers. We're going to talk about it here and what's been going on. If y'all haven't yet, please make sure that you like the video. All right. Likes are free, helps the channel out, takes less than a second to do. Let's go ahead and get into it. So Fani Willis has been subpoenaed and has been forced to meet in front of this Senate committee, this special Senate committee that's trying to figure out why in the world she thought it was a good idea to appoint a special prosecutor, Nathan Wade, someone who she had a relationship with, pay him well above and beyond what normally a special prosecutor would get paid. And not only that, she benefited herself, and she was in a relationship with him throughout and before the entire indictment and trial was going on. So the special Senate committee, they want answers. They want to find out why Fani Willis did this, and they called her to testify. First time she was called to testify, Fani Willis didn't show up. She said, I'm not doing it. Then they said, okay, we're going to try and force you to show up because we want to understand and maybe find a way we can fix this moving forward. Fani, maybe she's going to finally agree to that. We're going to listen in on what took place during this Senate hearing, and if the Senate's going to actually decide that Bill Cowsert and the rest of the committee is actually legally allowed to force Fani to come and give them answers. Check this out and we'll find out what's going on here. It gets wild.
Well, Georgia Supreme Court will now decide whether Fulton County DA Fani Willis must respond to a subpoena from a state Senate committee. Republican lawmakers say that it's about holding her accountable for her now ended election interference case against President Donald Trump. Well, the court's ruling could set a major precedent for state oversight. 11 Live Doug Richards joins us live now from the Capitol on today's court hearing. So, Doug, how did it go?
It was interesting. Fani Willis was not in the room when attorneys for the state Senate committee argued that Willis was compelled by law to answer a subpoena requiring her to testify. And then in a weird twist, Willis's people said that she would, in fact, testify. She just would not do so in response to the subpoena.
So basically what Fani Willis said is, all right, fine, I'm going to show up. But I'm not showing up because y'all are telling me to. The gall of this lady.
This case is moot. She's going to appear next Wednesday.
Former Georgia Governor Roy Barnes is the attorney representing Willis before the state Supreme Court. He argues the state Senate committee's subpoena is invalid because the Senate and House adjourned their legislative session weeks earlier.
The attack is that the subpoena is void, and there is simply zero constitutional text to support that argument.
An attorney for the Republican-led committee insisted the subpoena was legally valid. Committee members say only the subpoena can ensure that Willis would actually testify.
But she's going to appear. We've acknowledged service. We're going to be
she
there.
Actually answer all the questions, or can she refuse to answer some of the questions?
Well, I'll object where I think it's inappropriate.
I'm convinced she'll show up. I hope she'll show up. She was committed to showing up before and did not show up. The real question is whether she tries to hide behind privilege or whether she's forthcoming with the committee.
Yeah, it seems like she's basically trying to say, you guys don't make a decision. I'll be there. We don't have to go through all this. Yo, we know. Stop the cap. She's not going to show up.
So Willis's attorney says that she will, in fact, appear next week voluntarily. And, of course, the question then is going to be to what extent she actually answers the questions that are submitted to her by the Senate members of the committee. Her attorney will be at her side offering her advice on whether or not to answer particular questions. We are live at the Capitol tonight. Doug Richards, 11 Alive News.
And I'm sure you're going to be following that story closely for us, Doug. We appreciate it.
And we're going to hear a little bit more from Fani Willis's attorney here, the former governor, because it gets interesting in what he's saying. I do not have any faith that she's going to show up. Maybe she will surprise us. If she does, we're going to be covering, of course, on this channel. And if y'all haven't yet, make sure you go subscribe to the new channel, Jury of Your Peers, where you'll be able to watch the full live stream of that there as well. Check this out from Atlanta News First. We're going to hear from Roy Barnes again on Facebook.
Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis will testify before a panel of state senators investigating her now defunct election case against President Donald Trump. They've been trying to get her in for more than a year now, but the DA claimed they didn't have the authority. On the same day the case was on the docket of the state Supreme Court, the DA said, I'll come to testify. It was a stunning turnaround, and political reporter Doug Reardon is live at the courthouse to explain what happened. Doug?
You said it, Blair. It was stunning. We did not expect this to happen, and that's because District Attorney Fani Willis has been fighting subpoena after subpoena from this committee for almost a year and a half now. She has not come in as they have really wanted her to. And even though that election case was thrown out just 2 weeks ago, state senators who sit on that panel say there is still plenty to hear from the district attorney.
This is moot. This case is moot.
Former Georgia Governor and Fani Willis attorney Roy Barnes is confused. With the DA's election case being tossed out just 2 weeks ago, he's not sure.
For him to say that's moot is like, how can you say that? To say someone's conduct that happened during an indictment, during a court proceeding, doesn't matter because the case got dismissed. How can you say that? Being an attorney. Come on, Roy.
Why a panel of mostly Republican state senators still want to hear from his client.
Here you got this committee, got 3 people on this committee running for statewide office, and they're putting out fundraising, says we're going to go after Fani Willis and you need to send me $100. I mean, that's ridiculous.
For over a year, Willis has fought their attempts to haul her in for questioning, but on the day the state Supreme Court had the case before them, Willis agreed to testify. She'll do so on December 17th. It was a stunning turnaround. Barnes said scheduling and medical issues prevented him from coming in to represent her all this time. Willis failed to show up for a scheduled testimony in 2024, but said she will honor the newest subpoena issued this year. The panel says they want to hear more about her relationship with the top prosecutor on the election case, Nathan Wade, and how the case may have financially benefited both of them.
We want to ensure this never happens again in the state of Georgia.
State Senator Greg Dolezal, who is on the committee and is one of the members running for higher office, said even though the case is gone, they can still learn a lot from Willis's testimony as long as she shows up.
I hope she'll show up. She was committed to showing up before and did not show up. And we need to ensure that Lady Justice indeed keeps her blindfold on. In this case, the blindfold was removed for political and personal ambition.
Barnes says it's all in bad faith.
If they disqualify every member of the General Assembly that has a romantic relationship with a secretary or a lobbyist, you're not going to be able to have a quorum next session.
Yo, shout out to Roy. Hey, he's not wrong on that one. Y'all know, hey, listen, lead attorney has talked about it. They be getting around over there. He's right.
And Governor Barnes is not one known to hold back. And an important note here, this Senate committee cannot actually discipline Willis. All they can do is construct a report to go back to the General Assembly when they reconvene in about a month's time, and they can consider making changes to state law around district attorneys and prosecutors. Outside the state Supreme Court in downtown Atlanta, Doug Reardon, Atlanta News First.
Wow. All right. So let's get into what actually happened during this Senate hearing that took place. Shout out to Kat Not Williams as well. Y'all haven't subscribed to Kat Not Williams. The link is going to be in the description. She basically gave us a quick breakdown of what happened, and then we're actually going to get into the video itself. Kat said, in the case of Fani Willis versus Bill Cowsert, she said basically her too long didn't read on today's oral arguments in front of the Georgia Supreme Court is that the justices don't seem like they even want to rule on the issue because she should just show up. They want to see if Willis shows up on December 17th to testify, as Roy Barnes told court today that she would before the ruling. Fani's appearance on the 17th would satisfy the second subpoena, and thus there wouldn't be a need for the Supreme Court to weigh in on the enforceability and or mootness of the first subpoena. What a waste of time. Let's hear what Roy Barnes had to say during this hearing.
A committee may subpoena persons and documents, but it must do so consistent with the law and Constitution of Georgia.
The law is crazy, man.
We know in this state, since the time that Ellis Arnold was governor in 1943, that the General Assembly has said that it requires joint action of both the houses of the General Assembly, not just one house, both houses of the General Assembly to issue a subpoena. And in 2025, the General Assembly, exercising that power, passed a bill that allowed subpoena at the discretion of the Speaker and the President of the Senate. But it is not something that can be done just by one committee, one special committee, not even the whole Senate, and certainly not the General Assembly.
Counsel?
Yes.
Can you speak to your, I think the argument you describe as mootness based on the different General Assemblies?
It is our contention the case is moot for two reasons. The first reason is the General Assembly that issued this subpoena has adjourned sine die. And under Mason's manual and established case law, the General Assembly cannot act after it adjourns sine die. Second reason that it is moot is that they have enacted a statute in 2025. Now, I will leave to another day whether I think that statute is appropriate. However, we, representing the district attorney, have acknowledged service on that subpoena and will appear on the 17th.
So, counsel.
Okay, so that's what he said. Hey, all right, the second subpoena, y'all did your job. We're going to be there. Okay, chill. Everybody chill out. Why are we even talking about this?
A question on the sine die piece. I think, at least as I would process the information, I don't know that you need that to be the rule. The more powerful rule, to me, in your posture, would be that when the 158th General Assembly convened, the 157th dissolved. Because obviously the legislature still has power after it adjourns sine die, correct?
It cannot take official action.
It can call back into a special session if a governor refuses to call a special session, yes?
Three-fifths.
And if there's a DOT vacancy, they can elect a member of the Board of Department of Transportation.
Yes,
so they still have power, yes?
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to.
You're okay.
I don't argue with you about the adjournment and the reconvening when the new session, but that's happened in this case.
Yeah, I guess when
the 157th General Assembly is adjourned sine die, and the 158th General Assembly has met.
I guess what I'm trying to get a question is what is your perception of the importance, if you're right about the dissolution? I mean, we try to decide less, as little as possible, why would we need to talk about the sine die proposition in a world where this, at a minimum, the same arguments would apply to the dissolution and reconstitution, at least from my perspective. And I'm trying to get at what I may be missing, why that's important.
No, I'll take it any way I can find it, Justice Bethel. But generally, even with, and I won't get into this, but I served in the General Assembly for 22 years, and our rule was when you adjourn sine die on the second, particularly on the second session, the second year, then you were done. Now, there is a provision that special committees can meet, but they can report, but they can't take official action. And in fact, what was the general practice and procedure was even if they had issued a report, that they would readopt the report in the news session.
So that first subpoena that was issued by the committee in 24
Correct.
was a subpoena calling for testimony to that committee of that General Assembly.
Correct. And documents.
And the documents issue is not before us because that's
not before us because we've worked that out.
If we were to decide that that subpoena is now moot because the General Assembly and the committee of that General Assembly that it ordered testimony before no longer exists,
correct,
we would not have to decide anything about the adjournment sine die, right?
No, you would have to decide nothing about that, and that's the cleanest way, in my view, and the correct way.
It also strikes me that there may be potentially another basis on which to conclude that this case is moot, and that is if the district attorney does in fact testify on December 17th, I presume your position would be she would be testifying under both that first and the second subpoena?
No.
No. No, he's saying that first subpoena was BS because they never set a date to reconvene. Is what it sounds like.
Subpoena has been reissued by the 25 committee, and we have acknowledged service.
So that word reissued is an important one. What I'm trying to figure out is what is the status of the first subpoena following the acknowledgement of service of the second subpoena?
Yeah, so it seems pretty straightforward. And again, this is me talking about it as an attorney. I would love to hear from our resident attorneys in here. What they're saying is basically they subpoenaed Fani Willis the first time. She didn't show up. Now, she still didn't have to show up. She could face consequences from that. Now there's a second subpoena to show up. She's saying she will. So with that being said, the first subpoena doesn't matter in the first place unless, what are they going to sanction her? What's going to happen here?
I think it's dead. And the reason I think it's dead is because there has been a meeting of a new General Assembly.
In agreeing to appear under the new 2025 subpoena, has your client made any assertion about what authority she thinks she is testifying pursuant to? In other words, have you disclaimed that any authority from the 24 subpoena still exists, or have you just said we're showing up?
We're showing up. We're showing up pursuant to the subpoena that we acknowledge service on.
So basically they're saying, hey, the law is so funny. And how lawyers are able to just basically not answer questions without answering questions. And I hate to interrupt the lawyers here. It's hilarious because he's basically saying, the first subpoena doesn't matter. We're showing up for this one because this is a new convening of a special committee. This is wild, man.
Which is the 2025.
And so is it your position because you've only acknowledged service as to that subpoena, the only authority that could attach is pursuant to that subpoena?
Correct.
It's so
But
interesting.
you've also acknowledged the validity, the procedural validity of that subpoena in acknowledging service, correct?
I've acknowledged exactly what an acknowledged service is, that I have been served with that subpoena and that I will obey it, that I will come. Now,
And that you agree to the procedural validity of it.
So
I agree
to she was never
the
served
text of the
the
acknowledgement
first
of service, and there's some handwritten notes in the margin. The original text was, in acknowledging service, you acknowledge the validity of the subpoena. And I see the word procedural was added, which I presume is for the purpose of preserving all of these constitutional arguments.
Correct. And what it is, the procedural, Justice LaGrua, is this, that the subpoena was issued and that in lieu of service by the sheriff or any other person over 18 years of age, that we will accept it. And so that procedure is correct.
And counsel, just to clarify, any questions not related to the procedural validity but constitutional validity and these other arguments that you're making in this case with respect to that subpoena would be the subject of a new case or a different case, not this one.
And you may hear this again, because one of the things that Mazars, the Trump case, said and all, you can't try something, you just can't pick somebody out and say, we're going to embarrass you, we're going to try you, we're going to harass you. So we'll make an appropriate objection at the time. I'm not a potted plant, and I can do that, and that will be before.
Well, and to that point, I understand that before the trial court, there had been litigated not simply the question of whether the subpoena was invalid in toto, but also whether there were particular subject matters where separation of powers or other constitutional doctrines may provide her a basis not to respond to individual questions. And my understanding is that the trial court essentially reserved those questions for assessment after questions have been asked and not answered, such that that issue is not presently before us.
It is not presently before you. It is an underlying question. But
And to interrupt Roy again, Bill Calsert even offered and said he was willing to talk with Fani Willis. He was willing to talk with Roy and figure out what questions they were going to ask. Now it seems like they haven't even had that conversation that we're aware of, and they're just going to be able to ask whatever they want to ask. And Roy said in the interviews we heard previously that he'll just object when he needs to object, and Fani may or may not have to answer the questions. This is going to be very, very interesting to see what happens on the 17th. Y'all know we will be here to cover it. Let me know what you think in the comments and in the chat. Thank y'all for being here. We've got another Fani Willis topic we were going to get into, but I think we're going to save that one for tomorrow because we've got some interesting stuff to talk about in tomorrow's show. If y'all haven't yet, please make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any time we go live. Thank you to all 1,400 of you that liked the video. My goodness. That is absolutely amazing. Thank y'all so much for the love. I appreciate it. I want to give a special shout out to everyone that dropped super chats over there. Spring Flowers over on the Cash App. She dropped the 10 bomb and said, appreciate the consistent content. Thank you, Spring Flowers, for the love. And thank you for the consistent support too. Spring Flowers supports here on the morning show and also on the Song of the Night Live as well. We've got an episode of Song of the Night Live tonight. So make sure if y'all enjoy hearing some music from the independent artists in the community, make sure you tune in for that. Shout out to my guy, Mr. Brown, for dropping the 5 bomb. And then of course, the beautiful, awesome, amazing Amy E. I hope y'all have a great rest of your afternoon. And as always, you know what to do. Keep growing, keep pushing, keep it classy. We gone. Peace.